Welcome back. Before we get started, well, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, comment, share, all of which can be done down below. If you do, you'll feel better about yourself, and I will be very grateful. Mahalo. Welcome to another episode of A Moment of Tiki, coming to you from the Lagoon of Mystery, my home tiki bar here in Central Texas. One of the areas that I have been forthright with over the years is the fact that I feel my tiki space is lacking in actual carved wooden tikis. Now, I have attempted to address this to some small degree on my own. Those of you who have watched the entire series may remember my less than successful, shall we say, pecan log moai. Last year I did the 2 tiki bob carvings, and I wanted to try this time to carve something a bit more in a traditional style. Now, I didn't want to specifically carve a Hawaiian style or a Maori style or a Marquesan style, but I wanted something that was progressing in that direction. I've been working towards a bit more authentic styling with my work, as you've seen. So I hit upon the idea of carving the logo / mascot from Hawaiian Eye. You may or may not know, but Hawaiian Eye was a detective series that ran from 1959 to 1963, and it was set in Honolulu, although it was mostly filmed on Hollywood backlots. It was starring Robert Conrad and Connie Stevens, and the adventures went around them solving your typical detective mysteries and such. But it had a distinctive tiki that was used for the logo and as an identifying mark. It's not a particularly complex tiki, but it's distinctive. It has some interesting curves and stylizing to it. So I wanted to try and carve an Hawaiian Eye tiki in one of the palm logs I have. And also, this being the season of giving, I may have a Hawaiian Eye tiki to give away to you. So stick around to the end of the episode to find out how you can win your very own Hawaiian Eye tiki from me to you. Let's get at it. A distinctive feature of the Hawaiian Eye tiki is that it's got a tapered neck. So what I have done here is mask off using blue tape 2 sections. This is going to be the base of the tiki, which is going to be raw wood, bark, unmarked. And then I'm going to taper it in at the angle, and this is going to be cut in pretty deep. This is probably a case where a chainsaw would be more efficient, more effective. I'm not that comfortable carving with chainsaws yet, so I'm going to use the angle grinder with the coarse shaping wheel from Kutzall. Probably going to go a little slower, but it's going to give me more control, and we'll see how it goes. Turns out my angle grinder was not able to get all the way down into the crevices here when I cut the angle, so I had to resort to my die grinder to get in there to finish out the cut on the neck. Now that the neck is finished, I am going to pull out the chainsaw for a little bit. Not going to do any artistic carving, but I'm going to use it to debark the log. Remove each one in straight, thin strips. Doesn't take a whole lot of talent. Just get in there, cut it off. and be done with it. So then we'll be able to get to the real carving, and I'll turn back to my angle grinder. When I am finished debarking the log with the chainsaw, I pull out my angle grinder to smooth down the sharp edges. I've smoothed out the cuts and it's mostly cylindrical, but there's still a whole lot of fuzzies on it, fibers from the wood, so I am going to use my handy dandy torch and just give it a quick once over just to burn away those hairs, those fibers, so I have easier time marking and carving. Well, the log is now cylindrical, burned off, smooth as it's going to be. So I'm going to use the angle grinder at this point to take the edge off the head. The head of the Hawaiian Eye Tiki is rounded, both at the jawline and at the top. So I am going to take off the corner and make it more authentic. Unlike with my Tiki Bob carve a few months ago, this Hawaiian Eye Tiki, I'm not going to do an overall pattern because frankly, it's a more rough-hewn, primitive-looking carving, so it does not need to have that symmetry. I'm mostly freehanding it, using a pencil to lay in the facial features. Now, one area that I did give into for a template are the eyes. The eyes are very distinctive, and I want to make sure that they don't end up being lopsided. So I cut a template pattern out of butcher paper, and I used that to ensure the eyes were comparable. So we don't have one that's radically larger from the other, they're both similar shape. And now, once I have the whole face sketched out, I'm taking a black Sharpie and going over all the pencil marks to make sure they are visible when I'm cutting. Because when you have dust flying and blades whirring, bits and burrs, sawdust can obscure these lines pretty quickly. The whole pattern is now sketched out with the Sharpie marker, so time to start cutting. I'm going to use my die grinder with the coarse green saber-tooth burr. It's 2 inches long, ball-nosed, half an inch wide. Probably the most versatile burr that I use for carving out at least the initial stages, and so that's what we're going to go with. Now I'm going to sketch in the cheekbones, for lack of a better term, for the tiki. The Hawaiian Eye Tiki at first glance just looks like a straight cylinder, but if you pay closer attention, it's not straight. It has a little hourglass thing going between the cheeks and the eyes and everything else. So I want to give myself a little bit of guidance, because it's not a strongly defined section, but a little bit of guidance on where these cheeks need to go, so I can carve around them and remove sections of the side of the face, so it'll be closer to the tiki that was initially used in the TV show. I'm using the angle grinder because I'm going to take off significant amounts in continuous motion and hopefully give us a little bit of wave action on the sides. Now it's time to tackle the eyes, and honestly this has me more nervous than anything else. There's a hollow on the inside of the eye, and then the outer part of the eye slopes in. This would be accomplished fairly easily with chisels and gouges. Unfortunately, my sharpening skills are really lacking, and my chisels and gouges would just kind of make a hack job of this. So I am using a cut-saw bit, a long taper bit on this with my die grinder, and I'm going to try and carve out the inside and then use this at an angle to take away all the exterior part, and hopefully we will have something when we're finished that looks vaguely like the eyes from the original Hawaiian Eye Tiki. Main carving is complete now, and I have to say I'm very happy with the way this turned out. The overall carve looks much closer to the Hawaiian Eye Tiki than I really expected to be able to get. I'm happy with myself that I was able to pull it off, and happy with the end result. There are still a lot of rough carving marks from the power carving here, a lot of gouges and scratches and linear disfigurement that I want to get rid of. So I am going to use my angle grinder with a sanding wheel. Now this is much like a flap disc. A flap disc is a flat disc you put on an angle grinder with a bunch of layers of sandpaper overlapping, and it smooths flat. This wheel actually is like that, only the sandpaper sheets curve around so you can get into some of the curved spaces and narrow corners. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go over the entire tiki and try and sand out those leftover carving marks and gouges from my initial cuts. finally doing some minor touch-ups with sandpaper in hand. Okay, the carving and the touch-ups are finished, so what I'm going to do now is go over it one more time with my torch and get all the stray splinters and fuzzies and hairs and fibers and all the other stuff torched off, so we have a nice, smooth, unblemished surface to work with when we apply the finish. Once we've finished lightly scorching the surface of the tiki, I'm going over it with this nylon deck brush to remove the surface char. It was just a light toasting. We didn't want to burn the wood underneath. We're using nylon because we only want to take the very surface layer off. We don't want to gouge into the wood to create that faux aged look. We're removing the char layer just so we have a more even complexion on the tiki and not as splotchy as it would be earlier. Just taking away the most of the char. Okay, I've got the tiki sanded down, buffed down, polished down. It's in its final stage, and that means it's time to apply the finish. Since this is going to be an outdoor finish, outdoor tiki, I am using my go-to Cabot's Australian timber oil. It is the natural finish. I realize that when I've used this before, I haven't explained very clearly what that means. The natural finish is not clear. They have a clear version. The natural finish is a slightly ambering tint, which you will often get with many of the oil-based finishes, and it looks like the wood's natural color, even if it isn't exactly what the wood's natural color is. It's a nice kind of warm color that evens out the tone and gives it a more uniform appearance. It is a combination varnish, a spar urethane surface treatment which will cure and harden, give it external protection, plus oils which will penetrate into the porous palm wood and give it some internal protection as well. There are a lot of other finishes out there. I'm not particularly indebted to Australian timber oil. They don't pay me. This isn't an ad for them. It's just I've found that this works fairly well for these types of tikis. Your mileage may vary. Give it a good coat on the top, which is more porous because of the end grain, and also on the bottom where it will come into contact with concrete and the elements. And all through the piece. And that's it. The Hawaiian Eye Tiki is finished, but that doesn't mean I'm done yet. As I alluded to earlier in the episode, I am going to make some giveaways. I am going to make not a full-size Hawaiian Eye Tiki, but I am going to make smaller, miniature, holiday ornament Hawaiian Eye Tikis to give away. And let's get started now. Using a cut-saw dovetail burr on my Dremel, I am carving out the V-neck that is distinctive for this Hawaiian Eye Tiki. Next, I am sketching out with a pencil the face on the tiki to act as a guide as I go through and carve it out. I'm going to start carving the ornaments for the Hawaiian Eye Tiki using my Dremel with the flex shaft, and this is a narrow cylinder burr on the end that'll cut and give me a fairly good control for detail. It doesn't take off a whole heck of a lot, but it's an effective cutter. So for the mouth here, I'm using a ball cutter, a spherical cutter. Right here, to cut the eye slits, I'm using the narrowest cutter bit that Dremel makes. Now, a light torching to remove all the fuzzies and smooth it out. Drill a hole in the head for the hook, the eye hook, which will hold the hook so it can hang on a Christmas tree or your Festivus pole. A nice coat of boiled linseed oil will penetrate and seal. Then after a coat of de-waxed shellac, I start applying acrylic paint to finish out the ornament decorations of the holly and berries on the back that I carved out. Well, here we are with my Hawaiian Eye Tiki, and folks, I have to say I am just ecstatic over how well it turned out. The cheekbones, the carved on the inside, the eyes. I was terrified about doing the eyes since there's so many angles to them, but it turned out delightful, very much recognizable as the logo mascot tiki from Hawaiian Eye. And it's carved from palm log. I think my carving skills took a real leap forward on this one. And then this guy, the ornament that I carved from mountain juniper. It looks very much akin to this guy. And as I have done in the past, I didn't just make one of these. I made several of them, so you actually have 3 chances to win this ornament at no cost to you. Now, go down into the show notes and it will give you the instructions on how to enter to win this holiday ornament, whether you want it for Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Festivus for the rest of us. Does not matter. It is my gift to you to enjoy as you see fit. And if you would like to increase your chances of winning, you can go to my Instagram page where I will be giving out for free one of these hand-carved ornaments, or the Moment of Tiki Facebook group where I will also be giving out a third. The rules for entry are slightly different for each one of those, but I will have the links to each of those pages down below, so you have the option of entering 3 times for a chance to win. So good luck to you, and mele kalikimaka. Until next time from the Lagoon of Mystery, aloha.
Well, if you ever feel lonely and you haven't got a friend, you feel downhearted and that's the road saying to get yourself together and head for a place I know. It's a little German town with a Spanish safer than Mexico. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio. And once you hit the city limit, you don't have to be alone. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying an overload, knows a boom in a little bird they call a grain. If your ever loving woman won't treat you right, and your nights get longer and your pants get tight, then get yourself moving and get ready for a change. Some fella said money can't buy me love, but I know it could be. And speaking of that classic country town they call a green. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio. And once you hit the city limits, you don't have to be alone. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying an overload, knows a booming little bird they call a green. So if you got a little money and you feel uptight, go to LaGrange and they'll treat you right. Just stop at the filling station, give them half a chance. And they'll give you directions to a little retreat with a grade A government inspected meat, and they'll send you to the famous chicken ranch. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio. And once you hit the city limits, you don't have to be alone. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying overload, knows a booming little bird they call a green. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying overload, knows a booming little bird they call a green. Thank you.
Honey, that is a little country place out there. The people's tried to make it into something that it wasn't. Just a little country whore, that's what it amounted to.
Yeah.